Hello, thanks for coming, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Good. Okay, in an effort to keep everything moving, we're going to start at noon sharp. But before we do that, Judy's just going to catch the announcements as we go around, but we're going to have everybody introduce themselves. I know everybody's eating, so work with it as best you can. Maybe we can start over here at the table with Rachel.
Hello, I'm Rachel, and I work for the Oregon Chamber.
Oregon School District. You're going to see a lot of excitement in the next 30 days because we will start our school construction project at the middle school and high school. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to ask me or one of those three people that will be on stage. I'll give you a personal tour if you want. Great.
Brian Yule, I'm the Chief of Police here in Oregon.
Tom Bradley, I represent SCORE. SCORE stands for Senior Corps Retired Executives. We're funded by the SBA and we provide free and confidential business counseling to people who want to start a business or people who are currently in business. That's my pitch. Free!
I'm Julie Supernat. I'm with Paint My Face, a family entertainment, face painting and face art service. Birthday party celebration.
And I'm Shore. I'm the manager at State Bank of Cross Plains here in Oregon.
Bridget Krieger, and I am a business banker with the State Bank of Cross Plains in Oregon and Rural.
And past president.
And president.
And I'm Sue Marston with Sea World Adventures. We've just added another group trip, which is a river cruise in September to Holland and Belgium.
I'm Dan Krause with Krause Donovan Estate Law Partners. I'm also a member of the school board at this time. An Army Reservist still for the next few months. So with Krause Donovan Estate Law Partners, we have general trust and estates education seminars actually 3 times a month. I can't remember the exact times, but it's all on our website. And we'd love to have anybody that is considering doing some estate planning or would like to learn about it, come to our website, give us a call, and set up a time to come in.
I'm Jeannie Carpenter with Wisconsin Cheese Originals, and I also have tickets to the Oregon Rotary March 5th cheese and wine tasting. $25. You get 10 wines times 10 cheeses. That's my official pitch. I have tickets today.
Uriah Carpenter, candidate for school district in Cheese Junior.
I'm Carmen Victorson. I'm a community member and a parent.
I'm Krista Flanagan. I'm also a candidate for Oregon School Board, so we'll be hearing from me in a minute.
I'm Steve Staken with the Village Board.
Eric Robinson, LSM Chiropractic.
Allison Jones, Oregon Area Senior Center.
Bill Livey, Oregon Observer.
Megan Schuss, former company and board member.
I'm Doug Brednauer, member of the Village Board.
Jason McGill, Century 21.
I'm Dan Donahue, co-owner of the Chocolate Caper and a board member.
Elizabeth Donahue, other owner of the chocolate.
Hi, I'm Paul Zwicker. I'm the new program coordinator over at Oregon Cable Access. We're moving Oregon Cable into a new direction, helping businesses out in the community. I've got a video production background in broadcast, commercial, marketing, corporate, training, and I hope to bring that expertise to the local community. And we're helping out our local departments as well and continuing to do our community access programming.
I'm Stacy Goodrow. I'm a mortgage loan officer at McFarland State Bank and member of the Chamber Board.
My name is Jeff Woodrow, and I'm a bank manager at McFarland State Bank and a Village Board member.
I'm Jerry Ballard, Village Board member and County Board. Tom Whittle, Bear Insurance, commercial insurance broker.
Hi everyone, I'm Gina Jonan with the Oregon School District.
I'm Andy Weiland with the Oregon School District. And Jeff McCarthy, Alliance.
I'm Diana Hutchinson with Monarch Web Marketing.
We have a couple people that just came that we haven't introduced.
Building
you want to introduce yourself?
Phil Harms, Advanced Builders, Village Board, candidate.
And I'm Judy Knudsen, I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber, and I want to thank you all for coming. I do want to thank everybody for coming last Saturday night. We had 171 people at our annual dinner, which was absolutely wonderful, so thank you for that. And we will hopefully get the date out there sooner so we can get more. Also, we are not going to take the time to do the announcements, so you have a pink slip on your desk. Pink slip on your table. On your desk. It's not mine, it's not mine. No. So take the time to look at this. We are really trying to fill out the Facebook for businesses because there's a way for you to advertise with Facebook. It's on the February 25th and March 3rd, I believe. And it is not going to be Pinterest, it's going to be 2 parts of Facebook for businesses. So that's the only change that we had that we were advertising before.
Might Pinterest come back?
Pardon me?
Might Pinterest come back?
Pinterest may come back, but right now we want to work with this because we're getting more people calling me saying, what would you do with Pinterest? So we're going to hold off on that a little bit and work with the instructor. So, but thank you. Over to you, JJ.
And for those of you that don't know me, my name is JJ Giese. I'm current president. I also work in sales and marketing for Ticey Printing. You can see how important it is to work with color paper selection sometimes. Pink slips. Give everyone a pink slip. So if the candidates want to come up, we'll get started. For the sake of time, we're going to go through all presents. We're going to give everybody 5 minutes for opening remarks and go through the village board and the school board, and then come back through. Presentations and questions should be confined to issues and not personal attacks. Let's not make it a national presidential thing here. Yep. And there's some lovely notepads just for the sake of consistency, the ones that have my name on them from Ticey, because I grabbed what I had. Fill those out, put any questions on them. Judy will come around and hand those in, and then we'll go through those as much as time allows. The order of speaking for opening statements will be determined by drawing cards, which I'll hand out in just a moment here. Closing statements will be limited to 2 minutes, and they'll be given in the reverse order of how they're selected as we get started. Exceptions will be made if a candidate has a previous commitment and notifies the moderator or chair. Each candidate will receive equal time for an opening statement. Again, you're allowed the amount of time. You don't need to use that much time if you don't want to. There'll be followed by a question and answer period, again, as time allows. And the meeting will conclude with brief closing statements, which again are the 2 minutes. Bridget is going to keep time, and she'll hold up cards so everyone can see over there. Hopefully everyone can see her okay. She's going to signal with 30 seconds and stop cards, should you get to that moment. I already mentioned Judy's going to collect questions. And if any of the candidates have campaign material, it'll be in the back table back there. So I'll just introduce everyone from left to right. This village board's on this side, school board on this side, as you can see on the cards. We have Jerry Bollig, Jeff Boudreau, Doug Bretthauer, Phil Harms, and then on to the school board side, Uriah Carpenter, Krista Flanagan, and Dan Kraus, who we've all heard from briefly. So we'll start out with the openings. Actually, we need to select cards first. Let's do that. So who was the lucky one to draw an ace over here? There you go, Phil. Let's do opening remarks. Everybody, please speak clearly into the microphone.
5 minutes from JJ?
5 minutes, yep. Yeah, we're just going to go through, so you guys will go through in order as you select the cards. Yeah. And after that, so then we'll open it up to questions and we'll have to
Deja vu all over. 2 years ago, same situation. I drew the first number, and I was an active trustee running for re-election. Didn't get elected, and now I'm back at it. Name is Phil Harms, Advantage Builders here in Oregon, longtime Oregon area resident, and village resident since I believe from '04. Oregon. Okay, do you want me to start over? Okay. Last fall, I had individuals come up to me and ask me if I was interested in running for village board again. And I said, well, why? Well, they felt that they weren't comfortable with the board as it was operating. They felt their interests weren't being met. The village board, for some reason, was going in a different direction. And basically, this is the older community within town. And they felt that their taxes personally were going to be going up, and they did. Mine went up 4% this last year. And they weren't getting anything in return. There was bells and whistles out there. But for them, successful community is the fact that the tax rate is held or it goes up minimal. There has to be justification for the way things are going if they're going to be going up. The other issue that came up was the amount of legal fees that were being spent on resolving the police department issue. They felt that was just outlandish. And they asked me what I thought about it. I said, well, I've got no control over that. It's what the board decides and the village attorney with how far they want to pursue it. But they still didn't understand that this was a process that we had to go through. So that was $200,000 that they felt could have been spent elsewhere. And the things that are coming up for me personally are the hotel negotiations. Where are they headed for? Are we going any place? When I got off the board, as an example, the village was seriously considering going across the highway for a new business park. And in the last 2 years, I haven't heard of that being discussed hardly at all, about pursuing that option going across. Our existing business park is limited to the number of lots and the size of the lots. And we have to create income to justify our existence. Its ability to pay has always been my motto, my whatever. Just the ability to pay. And the ability to pay shouldn't be dictated by salary. Ability to pay is where our priorities are lying. If they're increasing the tax base, if they're creating jobs within a community, that's one thing. That's a good thing. The other issue that I have right now, and this is reconstructing South Main, Elm, Washington, and State. That area of town needs work. There is underlying conditions underneath those streets, and I think Steve is aware of them. What's going on underneath the water lines. Those areas have to be addressed and addressed soon. And it's going to take a lot of money to do it. It's going to take a lot of effort, but it needs to be done. 1 minute, thank you. Okay. I did a couple of notes here, sheets of notes. The other issue that's been brought up to me is the downtown campus plan. If you're longtime village residents, you realize that downtown area isn't buildable soil-wise in a lot of areas. Now, the thing I brought up in my own mind this morning was the fact that most people, it's a two-stop downtown. Let's stop at the library and the post office, or let's stop at the post office or the library. So I think the campus plan going forward here hopefully won't be shelved, but hopefully you'll be able to look to realistically what we can do down there to make things happen. Thank you. Jerry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jerry Bollig, and I think that we're all here for the same reason. We think Oregon is a great place to live and operate a business. And we not only want to preserve that, but we're looking, we want to look for a way to enhance that if we can. I've lived in Oregon most of my life. I grew up here. I went to the schools here. And after college, I came back, and I was fortunate enough to have a job that I kept for almost 40 years. I've been on the board 14 years. When I retired, I ran for county board, so I'm doing a dual role right now, village board and county board. First thing I'd like to talk about is the fact that when you're on a board, it's a collaborative effort. If it's not, you don't get a lot done. And I think we've done a great job at the village level of making that happen. All the improvements, all the things that you see have come about through collaboration, not just the board, but it's the staff, the business community, the residential community, the public. And that's the engine that makes things happen in town here. I think that thanks to those efforts, we've got a very viable, healthy community right now. And I think there's several reasons for that. We've been able to maintain the financial health by adopting responsible budgets that operate within revenues. We've maintained the services, and we have a capital plan that we follow, and we adhere to it. And of course, it's a moving target. If something comes up that needs to be done, something else has to go down the list, and that's pretty much how it is. And it also starts with the staff. We're so fortunate that we have such a great staff. We've always tried to hire good people and then give them the tools to do their jobs and get out of their way and let them do their jobs. And that's not to say we don't monitor what's going on. We do. The other thing we try to do is encourage residential growth. We infill the current lots before we even look for annexation. Right now, the Bergamont is humming along pretty good. There's a lot of construction going on out there, and that's really great for the residential base. To encourage residential growth, though, you have to have good services, which includes roads. I think we put almost $700,000 into our roads last year. We have to have good access to shopping, dining, and entertainment. And we're very fortunate to have a very vibrant business community right now. So I think we owe a vote of thanks to all you people out there. We also have to improve recreation. We've done that with the bike paths. We've got new dog parks. And hopefully, working with the township, we'll be able to get a bike path from the current new bike path over to the Badger State Trail. And last, but probably very important, is we have to continue to promote business growth. And, again, we do that by maintaining services, maintaining roads, public safety, and be responsive to new problems as they come up. In other words, if there's a parking problem, we put a new lot off of Jefferson Street. Again, we're doing a lot of street repairs, and that'll continue. And we work with the chamber to attract new business with the funding that we give the chamber. And we also, use TIF incentives and grant incentives. And hopefully, we'll get a new hotel in the near future. That's been on the target for a long time. Again, business drives the local economy. Residential growth drives the local economy. Having a fine staff helps both of those. So that's one of the reasons we try and maintain the health of the village, the financial health of the village, so that we can remain viable. So I look forward to my closing remarks, And I'll hand this off to
Number
Jeff.
3.
Number 3.
So thank you to the Chamber for inviting me to come and speak this morning, and thank you to all of you for coming and listening. My wife and I, Stacy, have been living in Oregon for 11 years now. I'm a former Marine Corps veteran. Well, I'm a current veteran, former Marine. When I got out of the Marines, I went to college and got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and thought I was going to be a police officer. I was wrong. I was going to be a banker. So 15 years. I've been in bank management and most recently in community bank management. And I have to say, as I look at the different types of banking institutions, community banking is a very different approach to the business of banking. And it's an approach that puts the community first. And it really gives you an appreciation for what the small business owners do for the strength of the community. And I'll get back to that a little bit more later. When my wife and I moved to Oregon, I remember we'd go up and down Main Street and I'd say, why this and why that? And then I'd always end up kind of chastising myself, saying, you know, Jeff, if you're going to complain, you should do something about it. And one day I was complaining to Jeannie in the coffee shop, and Jeannie said, Jeff, they're accepting signatures over at the Village Hall. You should do something about it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go over there and I'm going to get my signatures. And I went through several phases. The first phase was, what if I get elected? And that was a little scary, but it wasn't as scary as the second phase, which is what if I don't get elected? You know, what is the village saying about me? But I got through both of those phases, and once I got on the board, I realized that there's a lot to learn about being on a board. My personal approach to the village is you have to preserve the past to prepare the future, and the future has to involve growth. You're either green and growing or you're red and ripe in a farm. And I like to think of the village of Oregon as being very green and growing. In the time that my wife have been here and I have been here, there's been a lot of change. So relative to preserving the past, there's a few things that we were able to tackle in the last couple of years that I've been on the village board, which were sort of unique in nature, but I think they also speak to the bigger issue, which has been alluded to by Jerry. And those are the preservation of the current historic buildings. While they are privately owned, they're affected by decisions that were made at the village level with regards to street improvements, et cetera. And so we had to tackle some really challenging issues with water in basements and whose fault and whose responsibility. For me, it's always about trying to find the how in things. I consider myself to be a servant leader. No's and yeses are very easy. And so the challenge as I've been on the board for the last 2 years has been to weigh these very heavy issues and figure out how everybody's going to win a little bit in the outcome. Preserving the past is very important. Additionally, as we look to build the central campus, I'm going to be advocating for us to find a repurpose for the Village Hall. That Village Hall was the central campus of the Village of Oregon in 1941. The library, the senior center, the food pantry, they all were in that building. That building has a legacy here and it deserves to remain. That takes me a little bit forward into preparing the future. Some of the things that we were able to do in the last couple of years to prepare the future include the finishing and the paving of the bike trail. And for any of you bike enthusiasts out there, the connection of the Oregon Village to Fitchburg and ultimately to the Badger State Trail is going to be a huge boost for the Village of Oregon from an economic development standpoint. The Chocolate Caper, the restaurants, and the other businesses downtown will become more and more viable as people come into Oregon and find out what we have to offer here. And that's going to be a big avenue for that sort of transportation. Secondly, I would say the schools. People choose the communities that they live in because of the strength of the schools that are in those communities. And we are so fortunate to have Brian Bussler and his staff leading the charge. And I've been privileged to sit in planning commission meetings and at the board level to get these additions and these modifications and improvements approved and through the planning process so that we can actually start to have these wonderful facilities for our students. And I would say there's an emerging challenge that's coming up that I'll be continuing to tackle with my time on the board, and that's the increase in the low to moderate income residents that are living in the Village of Oregon. They need us to help them build an infrastructure that allows them to have the life that we all deserve. So I'll be continuing to work on projects for the low to moderate income families. So again, thank you very much for your attention, and I'll wrap up later with more on small business and preserving the past, preparing the future.
Thank you, Jeff. I want to thank you, Judy, and the Chamber for making it possible for me to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity to share my point of view with the people whom I represent. Just a little bit of biographical information. I've been a resident of the Village of Oregon for about 12 years and a resident of the school district for about 10 more. I'm married to Kate Breithauer and have 3 young adult children, Nick, Laura, and Ann, all of whom who have been educated in the Oregon school system. Also an active member of several volunteer groups, including the First Presbyterian Church, Boy Scout Troop 50, and an occasional volunteer at the food pantry as well. I'm employed by the Oregon School District as a substitute teacher. I also am a contractor to the Wisconsin Department of Administration's housing programs, where I'm responsible for assuring that funded projects meet current environmental standards. I also contribute occasionally to the Oregon Observer as a feature writer. I'm now just completing my first 2-year term as trustee, and I'm running for the village board again for a couple reasons. First, I strongly support our democratic form of government. I feel that stepping forward and offering to serve is a way of supporting the values of freedom that we all share. Secondly, it takes a while to understand the process of government, and I believe I now have the experience and knowledge of local government to be even more effective on behalf of the community that I serve. As a board member, I also serve on the Parks Board, the Historic Preservation Commission, the Public Works Committee, and the Personnel, Public Safety, and Protection Committee. I'm an active participant in board and committee discussions. When voting, I try my best to make reasoned decisions that benefit as many people as possible. I try to take into account the needs of the various groups of people who live in our town, the seniors, for sure, young families, and the business community, among others. I try to be mindful of the fact that government costs. In my opinion, the services that we receive from the village are good, but they're not free. And I try to balance the cost versus the benefit of new services. I'm interested in not only the needs of the day, but also the long-term future of Oregon as well. I try to keep myself informed of trends taking place here and in similar-sized communities around the county and the region. Oregon began life as a place where people rode horses or walked. It grew into a suburban community dependent upon the car. It's evolving into a place where some people are beginning to rethink their transportation and housing options. If you look around at other Dane County communities, many of them, including places like Stoughton, Cottage Grove, Middleton, and Verona, have all seen the construction of multi-family apartments in or near downtown areas, conveniently close to stores and services, and allowing a more walkable lifestyle for people such as single millennials, empty nesters, and so forth. When I was first elected in 2014, I met with the staff of the Senior Center to try to understand the housing needs of people in Oregon. The staff prepared a brief report for me, and there's copies back on the far table if anybody's interested, that indicated that there is demand for independent living among our senior population. The report is a starting point in imagining new opportunities. The possible development of a new municipal campus where the library, the senior center, village hall, and perhaps the youth center might share space piggybacks onto this idea. A well-planned central campus could help reduce village operating costs, strengthening our restaurant district and creating a richer and more vibrant urban core. The impact of the campus on the downtown as a commercial destination could be large, and the Oregon business community could benefit significantly. This is a long-term possibility, not a short-term one. Therefore, it's important for there to be continuity on the board. Over these past 2 years, I have felt a growing sense that Oregon is in a position to move forward. Village government, the business community, and public service providers are working together effectively to grow the community. There's new leadership in many of the village's departments. The current village board is working collaboratively in ways not seen for some time. The chamber is strong. Now is the moment to both make and carry out new and long-standing plans for a well-planned, attractive community that is responsive to the needs of a growing population. Thank you.
Thank you. Remember to write down questions. If anything comes to mind, we'll come around and grab those. Now we'll move on to the school board.
Can I
You were lucky. You certainly may.
Go out of the shadows a little bit?
Sure.
Thanks, JJ. My name's Dan Kraus, and I am running for the school board once again. I'm currently the school board president and have really enjoyed my last 3 years, but a little bit about my background. I have 2 kids in Oregon schools. I've lived here since 2003 in the village, and we moved here actually because of the schools. My wife and I were living in Shawano up north. We loved it up there, but we thought that there must be some place that had the schools that we dreamed of for our kids. My son was turning 4 years old, and we moved here to Oregon, and we have not been disappointed. The last 3 years have been, actually the last 4 years for the school board has been rather tumultuous, if I've got that word right. And it has calmed down, though, in the last year, I've got to say. I just want to talk a little bit about the school board and the turnover. And a couple of years ago, we were talking about the old board and the new board as to distinguish between the changes that happened in the composition of the school board since 2012. 2012, 2013, and 2014, the school board elections saw incumbents who had a person running against them on the ballot. Every single incumbent was defeated in those 3 years. That meant 6 board members out of 7 turned over in 3 years. So we can understand how we were talking about the old board versus the new board. It was a young board. We were learning on our feet. We made some mistakes, and we learned a lot. And I really want to thank Dr. Bustler for being the steady hand who helped us all learn, put up with our mistakes, still is putting up with our mistakes, and really being the rock that has led our school district through this very difficult time with flying colors. I also noticed that Attorney Gina Jonan is here, and Andy, and without either of them, we would not be in the great place that we are. Very well led by our administration. There was some danger during this turnover that we would lose some administration because of the turnover in the school board and uncertainty of how the district was going to move forward and what was the relationship going to be between the school board and the administration. And I hope that, well, at least we haven't had the turnover that was feared, and I really hope that the administrators understand that we appreciate them and we want to keep them. They are excellent. We're on a good path as far as administration goes. Personally, I'm also a veteran of the armed forces, Army veteran, as well as a current member of the Army Reserves. My experience in schools, I have been a teacher, not in this school district, and not even in this country. I was a teacher in Africa for 2 years as part of the Peace Corps, which gave me a great appreciation of what happens in the schoolroom. It also taught me that teaching is not the thing for me, which it's not the thing for most of us, and it is a job that is very hard and very hard to appreciate, and sometimes I think we don't give enough appreciation to the teachers, which brings me to the biggest issue that I think is facing the school district and the community right now, and that is teacher and staff compensation. The state has been cutting our funding in different ways, not allowing us to have enough tax money to support our schools. the percentage of the school district funding that we get from the state is going smaller and smaller. We are planning for a referendum to fund teacher compensation. It's should be happening this fall. I want to see this passed. I think it's very important for us to stay at the top of our game, and I welcome any questions later. Thank you. Who's next?
Me. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see you. I'm probably one of the token introverts up here, so I'm a little out of my element speaking in front of a group. I've lived in the Oregon area for about 20 years. I've been, my wife Jeannie, we've been together for 18, and our daughter Avery started in kindergarten and just recently graduated from high school. So I've had experience in all of the schools, and after she's out of the house, which leaves me with a little extra free time on my hands. I've always been interested in volunteering. I've been a member of the Oregon Rotary Club for about, since 2008. I've been president the last two. And felt there was there a way for me to get involved in the community, I guess I know a lot of the people through involvement locally, and I thought that school board might be a good position for me. I'm fairly analytical, hopefully fairly thoughtful. And those would be mannerisms that would be well served on a board, I think. For me, the school district is really the core, one of the cores of our community. It's really what drives us, and really that's what the school district is. One of the major factors, as I think Jeff mentioned, that people relocate to this area and want to stay in this area. And so it behooves us all that we have a very strong district for both our children's education and for a strong community. And that's, I guess, what I'd like to be on the board to help our students, help our community, and I guess that's about it.
Last but not least, my name is Krista Flanagan. I'm a candidate for Oregon School Board. So first of all, I want to thank Judy and Rachel and the Chamber for putting this together, and thank you all for being here. Just want to tell you a little bit about myself. My husband Scott and I have lived in Oregon for the last 17 years, and we do have two kids in school. Our daughter Erin is a freshman at Oregon High School, and our son Sean is a fourth grader at Netherwood Knoll Elementary. Personally, I have a bachelor's degree from UW-Madison and a master's degree in management from Indiana State University. My professional background is in the areas of strategic planning, fund development, marketing, and management, with over 20 years experience in both nonprofit and private sector businesses. But for the last 6 years, I've owned my own consulting business, which is a member of the Chamber, and so I work with small and medium-sized businesses on their marketing and on their strategic planning. And I'm also not new to boards. I have over 18 years of board experience. I've served on 3 different boards in Madison, including the Salvation Army of Dane County, Madison Festivals, and then also a board at UW-Madison. And so what I think from that professional experience and board experience, what I could bring is being able to listen to learn, assessing issues and being a critical thinker, knowing how to problem solve, and also exhibiting strong interpersonal skills. And I think those all relate really directly to the work of a school board. I also believe that getting a good education opens a lot of doors and windows for kids. And so for the last 4 years, I've really been involved in our school district. I'm a reading and writing volunteer at Netherwood Knoll Elementary for first and second graders. I'm a Schools of Hope tutor at Oregon Middle School. was for the last year the parent representative on the middle school referendum design team, so I've been actively involved in that process. And right now I'm also working with one of the guidance counselors at the high school and also with Judy at the chamber about the high school having a new community service graduation requirement. So we're trying to work on some community and school partnerships for that. And then lastly, I'm also working with a group of parents to see how we can help the district address basic need issues for students in our district. 10 years ago, 5% of our student body qualified for free and reduced lunch. That number is now 19%. And so we have a lot of at-risk kids who don't have the opportunities that many of their peers have in terms of food and clothing, transportation, internet access, and a positive adult role model. So I think these opportunities have really given me firsthand information about what our schools, our educators, and what our kids are facing today, what are some of the challenges, and then what are some of the opportunities we have. And so as a board member, I think that participation is really important outside of board meetings. The other thing I think is important to note too is only 2 of our 7 current board members actually have kids in school. And so I think there needs to be a better balance on our board there. But why am I running? I'm running for Oregon School Board because what I hope is evident is I believe in the power of education and the importance of all of us working together to provide an educational experience that is safe for our kids, that acknowledges varied learning styles, prepares our kids for their future, and recognizes the highly significant role of our teachers in terms of student achievement. And I think our community really deserves a board that's professional, thoughtful, inclusive, and one that makes decisions. So I hope what I can bring is I will work hard, listen, seek input, and invite collaboration with groups like yours. And I think that my experiences can be really helpful about how we both approach issues, understand them, and what we do about them. So, our goal is really providing an environment that parents feel like their kids are in an environment that's really conducive to learning, and that we're supporting our educators, our students are achieving, and there's a lot of community collaboration and partnerships. Thank you for being here today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. We've got about chords. We've got about 15 minutes for some questions, and then we'll go back to closing remarks. Anybody fill any questions in? Okay, so we'll just leave this up to anyone. Please tell us your position on random dog searches.
Random dog searches in the schools.
That makes sense. Please tell us your position on random dog searches in the schools.
Did everybody hear the question? It's about random drug searches. So one thing that people may not be aware of is that there's a document called the Dane County Youth Assessment, and so it's the Department of Health in Madison, the city, does a survey of all 7th through 12th graders in all of Dane County. And so Oregon is included in that, our middle school and our high school. And so it really reports on a lot of what kids are experiencing, their behaviors, parenting, how much sleep they're getting at night, but it also really addresses drug and alcohol use. And the numbers are pretty interesting in terms of what our kids are experiencing here in Oregon. I've met with Police Chief Ewell, I've talked with the captain of the Madison South Side, I've talked with principals, I've talked with parents, I've met individually with a lot of teachers. And what they're telling me is about 30 to 40% of our high schoolers have tried marijuana. And that there is drugs in the schools and that kids are actually dealing drugs in schools. And so, like with anything associated with schools, issues are not easy to solve. And so I don't view random drug searches as the panacea for solving the drug and alcohol issue in our schools. But I also know that it is an opportunity for us to help kids and identify who may be using, and the other piece of making our schools safer in terms of putting teachers in positions of identifying students that are using drugs, that puts them in a position. And so a random drug use, random drug search would not put them in that position. And so I think we really have to look at it as a tool to make our schools safer. Again, it's a bigger issue in terms of mental health and drug and alcohol counseling, but if our police department and our parents and our administrators and our students are saying that that might be something that could help get drugs out of the school, we probably need to use that tool.
It's obvious that the number one thing one of the things we definitely don't want is drugs in our school or drugs on school premises. And random random screening through schools is a way to help ferret out to make sure that those items are not in the school. And so it's something that should be, it's a tool, one tool in the toolbox to help that. I think I would also be in favor of working also with our local Oregon Police Department, that we might be able to do something more on a common occurrence, instead of doing a random screening through the school once or twice a year, that there'd be more ongoing involvement with the Oregon Police Department on school premises, just to help make sure that these illegal substances are not getting onto the school grounds.
For the sake of brevity, I think it's time that we give this a try. There is a balancing test, and we've got to be careful not to criminalize or take the kids into custody and turn them over to the criminal justice system. If we do find drugs, we need to find a way to work with the police who bring the dogs in that will help us to treat and help the kids to recover instead of being punitive about it. So that's the major concern. We want to keep the drugs out of the schools, but we don't want to give the kids criminal records and a harder time later on in life.
That was a popular one. Thank you. So we'll move on to the village for this one. I'm going to do my best to interpret this one. Why is it that a community only 8 miles to the west of us is such a mecca for new business growth and development, while Cusick Parkway remains a cornfield? Seeing the new KSW buildings on M, building is prolific on the north and south sides of M. So I guess it's basically about new business growth.
So I think that's a great question, and that's a question that we've wrestled with at the village board since I've been on the village board. We do want to grow. We want to grow in the right way. There are certain things that we have control over right now, and there's certain things that we have to plan for in the future. The central campus is obviously an immediate issue that has to be dealt with in the village. Expansion to the east and the east gateway to Oregon is something that we've talked about and we're planning for right now. And then the potential for expanding the office park or adding an additional office park. Those are also things that we need to discuss and think about. But again, growth comes in balance, and it's the businesses as well as the residents that commute to and from Madison, and as well as the school system to support the businesses and the infrastructure that supports all of it, that kind of have to grow hand in hand. So,
I assume when you say the community to the west, you're talking about Verona. I'm not sure, but if you are talking about Verona, I think the answer is Epic. I mean, Epic brings in thousands of employees on a regular basis. I mean, they've got bus lines from Madison. I've been to the airport. I've ridden on commercial flights back to Madison and been surrounded by Epic employees coming in for a seminar or training, something like that. When you have that type of a employer, yeah, you're going to be more viable. You're going to have more a growing community. I'm not sure that I'd like Oregon to be that kind of community, because that brings, sometimes it brings in big box stores, and it isn't always a good situation. But I think we do a pretty good job here in bringing in new business. I think if elected, I will continue to champion using tax incentive financing, grants, and things like that to get new business. I expect that we're going to be nailing down a new hotel pretty soon. Judy would know more about that than I do at this time, but I don't remember the rest of the question, so it was kind of a long question, but yeah, so I think I'll leave it at that. I think if we'd be a lot more viable. We'd be, if we had an employer like an Epic. But again, it depends if that's, not everybody wants to live in a town or a city or a village that has that type of employer either. It brings other issues to the table. So, thank you.
I think the answer to the question is that the village has a very thoughtful and deliberative process for incorporating the concept of growth into its planning. Epic seems to me to have come about as more of a regional decision to locate in an area where there is access to large amounts of land that could be built upon and to expand the business at hand. Here we plan for growth, I think, but in a way that's without an object or a target in mind. So it's more of an open-ended process, but very conscious and controlled, if that makes any sense.
I'm going to jump back to the school board question about the police dog. Yes, I would support that. I've talked recently with the chief of police. I've always been in favor of that animal being used for other than just traffic. Getting back, if I understand the question about Cusick Parkway, that land out there, that cornfield, that's still privately owned, right, Steve? Yeah, so there's an issue there. We have to give credit to previous village president, Jerry Lupke, for pursuing that, and he pursued it relentlessly and diligently for quite a few years to get that property to the village. I'm in favor of moving across Highway 14 and getting on board and pursuing development of that land over there for a business park. Like Jerry, I don't know if I understand at all the question.
No, that was good. We'll take one more for each side. For the school board, do you believe in performance-based compensation, and if so, what factors should be included in determining performance?
So how I understand the question, we're talking about teachers and teacher performance, and teacher performance is one of those things that's very, very difficult to gauge. We've got rubrics in place that help teachers to learn how they're doing well and how they can improve, and what they're made for is to help the teachers. What we've heard that people want is, if we're going to compensate teachers better, that many taxpayers want there to be some sort of a way that we can gauge how well the teachers are doing and not promote or give raises to teachers who are not doing well, and give bigger raises to teachers who are more effective. There's no good way to decide which teachers are the best teachers. We have figured out, though, that there are ways to decide which teachers can use some help in getting better. We're designing a system for teacher compensation that's based on basically steps and grades. And in order to move to the next step or grade, you can't be in a category where you have an improvement plan. So we do have ways to bring our teachers up to speed, and we want them all to get up to speed. but we are also devising a plan, which isn't finished, that would include the portion of teacher effectiveness, that if they are on an improvement plan, they can't move from one level to the next level. And I think that's a good way to do things, keeping in mind that there's no perfect way to gauge which teachers are the best.
Yeah, that is a really difficult question. How do you gauge a person who's in a professional position? There's no. I would find it's probably very difficult to give a test. How do you score somebody? What would that test include? If your job really is to see your students be successful and accomplished within your classroom, that's a really good question to ask. I think Dan brought up a lot of good points, that there certainly are grids and rubrics, and there are several different systems for that can be used to gauge, to make sure that teachers are engaging with their students. That every year that there's that they have professional development time, that they are using. Everyone in a professional career, there's always something to learn, and that's what we need to press, and ultimately to make sure that our children are successful in the classroom.
I won't kind of repeat what everyone else said, but I think there are a couple of important points in terms of we need to have a compensation plan for the teachers in our district. We currently do not have one. And so a committee is working on that, has been working on that for 3 years, and that committee is made up of administrators, teachers, board members. And so really wrestling with this question of how do you define what makes a good teacher and how should they be compensated. I think the other reality is we are heading into a teacher shortage based on things that have happened in this state over the last 5 years. Our school district is in dire need of subs. You look at UW-Madison and Edgewood College admittance for schools of education, they are down substantially. And so we need to design a system that hangs on to our really great teachers, and we have a lot of amazing teachers in this district. And so the other piece I would say is teachers are learners too, and so a really good part of that plan is professional development for our teachers, and really looking at our teachers as learners, as our students, and as we've all come to this place in our district that we don't define success of a student in our district based on a state-mandated test that changes every year. And so we really need to look at teachers in that way too, in terms of what are the measures of success. It is not just a student test score, it's the whole child and what skills are we teaching our kids. And so this plan has to be complex because it has to look at multiple things in terms of what a teacher is accomplishing and how our students are doing. So in terms of performance base, you really have to look at how you define performance.
Thank you. One more question for the village board, and then we'll go on to closing remarks. Do you support the hotel project?
That's a good question. I mean, I look forward to answering that question. That's an easy one for me. Of course I do, and I believe that the village has done everything possible to try and obtain a project that will give us the type of hotel that we need and desire and will benefit the community. We stand ready to offer any incentives that will make that happen. And it's just a matter of time. I believe that will happen hopefully this coming year, but I can't guarantee it. And I stand ready to vote on that issue whenever it presents itself.
Yeah, to echo Jerry and not repeat him, absolutely. Although I just echoed Jerry and I repeated him. So, yeah, this is a great thing for the village. It needs to happen, but the right deal needs to come to the board. And so far, several deals have come to the board, and for one reason or the other, they weren't quite the right deal. I'm very excited about the work that Judy has done. She's been a bulldog on this, and I know that with Judy's focus and effort and with the village board that we currently have, that this hotel will come to Oregon.
The marketing plan that the hotel developers put forward indicated that, correctly, that Oregon is an unknown market. It hasn't had a motel in it for a number of years. So I think it's important to consider the cost, or the potential cost, to the village as well as it goes into this. I think it's a good idea to have a motel, or hotel, but that we have to be careful to make sure that we're spending taxpayer money wisely if it comes about that the TIF money is requested. So, yeah.
I would support the hotel project because the company that's come forward, S&L, is a proven company. They have projects throughout the state of Wisconsin. It seems like they're the best qualified coming forward here, and I would favor bumping the TIF assistance from the 52-room back up to the 72-room option that we had. We're in competition, like Jerry said, with Verona. I think this is an opportunity that we cannot afford to let slide by, because we're going to try and drive the TIF amount down based on the number of rooms. I think we've got to get that up there. They've got a proven record, and I would support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to closing remarks from the school board first, just to change things up the other way. And we'll start with Krista.
First of all, I want to thank Judy and the Chamber again for having this, and thank you all for being here. I hope it really gave you an opportunity to learn a little bit about me and my experiences and what I think I can bring to the school board. I have a very strong commitment to our district. We have a lot of really incredible things that are happening, and there's a lot of opportunity, but there are also some challenges. And I think in a board, you need someone that's going to ask the right questions, think very critically about the issues, and really keep our students at the center in terms of what kind of education are they receiving? Are they learning? What is the relationship between the teacher and the student? So I want to thank you again for being here. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about me, my website is now up, and that's votekristaflanagan.com. So thank you again. Uriah, right?
Me too. I want to thank Judy and the Chamber for putting this on. Just want to say I'm willing to serve. I want to see our students succeed. I want to see our community succeed. And for there be world peace. Sorry, I'm truthfully, I'm a man of few words, and I tend to be fairly terse. So.
Thanks, Uriah. I also want to thank everyone for coming, and thank you, Judy, and the Chamber. And I just want to say that I really admire both Uriah and Krista, and I think that they are both excellent candidates for the school board. I would be proud and happy to work with either of them. And I do want to put in a plug for myself. Because of the turmoil that's happened so much on the board, if we had 2 new board members, it might be a little bit more of a transition. 1 new board member and myself returning to the board might be a little smoother. That's really, I can't say that I would be a better board member than either of these upstanding people who are also running. I also, in that vein, just wanted to let everyone know that all 3 of us got an endorsement from the Oregon Education Association, which is our teachers union. So that, I've never seen that happen before. I don't know if it's ever happened before, but all 3 candidates, the teachers union feels comfortable with working with all of us, and I think that's very important to know. So thank you all, and please vote for me.
Thank you. Now we'll do closing remarks for 2 minutes each from the village board candidates, starting with Doug, then Jeff, then Jerry, and then Phil.
I think a lot goes into being a good trustee. It requires a combination of many skills and attributes, including people skills, a basic understanding of the issues and government process, good judgment, adherence to basic principles, respect for differences of opinion, respect for the past, having a vision for the future, and a willingness to work to make it happen. No one person can do it alone, of course, but like others here today, I feel that I have something to bring to the table. If reelected, I will serve out my term with respect for the public and the office. I'll continue to try to serve the community the best I can for the benefit of all. Thank you for your support.
Everybody wins when everybody wins. And I think that should always be the goal, but it's a very tall order. There's a lot of stakeholders in any given issue. You've got business owners, you've got the faith community, you've got residents, you've got public works. I think it's going to continue to be a challenge for the board to make sure that we grow with balance. As I look outside the window, and I've had a lot of opportunity to do that today with everybody to my left, I notice that the tall trees are everywhere in Oregon, and tall trees have deep roots. I'm very thankful to the individuals that have invested their private capital in the Village of Oregon to make sure that our history is not forgotten. I'm very thankful to the business owners that have found repurposing in these old historic buildings to make sure that they can stay relevant in the current times. I'm very thankful to the police and the firefighters who I've gotten to know much better over the last 2 years, and the hard work that they put in every single day to keep us safe, and to the public works team and everything that they do every day to keep Oregon running and humming to our expectations. These groups all are going to need to be thought of and included as we move forward. We haven't talked much about the expense of the infrastructure, but it's coming, it's needed, and we're going to need to grow forward very thoughtfully and very deliberately, but we're going to need to grow forward. So we're going to need to think about the low to moderate income growth in our community and take very good care of all of our residents. And we're going to need to think about the public-private partnerships if we're going to make Oregon successful in the future as it is today. So thank you all very much for your attention and for inviting me today, and I hope to get your vote in April.
Thank you. In closing, I look forward to serving the village residents for another 2 years. I believe that it's a known fact that I'll continue to work with whoever is on the board. I will continue to work with the staff, our community partners, and when I vote on issues, I'll check my personal feelings at the door, and I'll vote to better the interests of the majority of the village. We have a lot of planning to do for our future. We're in a good position right now because we've got a healthy, viable community, and I pledge to do everything I can to keep it that way. I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank the organizers, and I want to thank the other candidates for offering to serve, because you really don't have an election unless you have options, and I believe we've got 4 really good options on the village election this year. So have a good day, and please vote, and remember your ID. I forgot mine yesterday. I had to go get it, so I don't want that to happen to anybody else. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Chamber, but also I'd like to be able personally to thank Allison. Due to a recent illness, the Senior Center helped myself and my family out tremendously from the services and equipment that they offer there. It was a great help. You have a wonderful staff there, Allison. Closing remarks. I'm kind of a nuts and bolts guy. Business Park on the other side of Highway 14 is important. The hotel issue is very important, top shelf. It's going to create a revenue stream that's going to help the Chamber and also help the village. There's a lot of At times I think Oregon is a ugly stepsister to the city of Fitchburg. We have to be able to grow and stand on our own and offer to our citizens, residents, and people in the surrounding area that we are different. We're not cookie cutter. We have things to offer in a small downtown. We have opportunities within a business park, and we have opportunities for employment within the village. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's great to see that we have so many great candidates in the community. That's really great for the community in general. So again, we'll just, first of all, a round of applause for everyone. Thanks for taking the time to come out here. Again, don't forget your pink slip so you get all of the information and everything that's coming up. We'll see you next time.